Stars who were once homeless. American homelessness stems from very simple missteps, misunderstandings, and destruction of property. To be specific, unpaid mortgage, financial hardship, abrupt shutdown of resources and missed financial support. Like checks. However, most is attributed to basic human relations, such as the glass ceiling on the jobs, rigged systems by contractors associated with red tape and blacklisting, and finally, people who know you well. However, once the obstacles are understood and rectified, the energy it leads to is an immediate turnaround, influx of support, and long-term pathways to more stable and prosperous lives. People recall to what they term as before life got good. It's very hard to concentrate when your stomach's rumbling, Shania Twain once said. She should know. As a child, Shania often went to school hungry, and by the age of 14 she was living in a homeless shelter. And the queen of country pop isn't the only major star to have faced such struggles. Click through for more on celebrities who've been homeless and how that experience may have influenced the charities they support today. Shania Twain. Escaping an abusive childhood home with her mother and siblings, the future country star moved into a shelter for battered women in Toronto and lived there for about a year. The five-time Grammy winner recounted the chilling details in her 2011 memoir, From This Moment On, and made it her personal mission to help other kids in dire circumstances. Shania Kids Kin, established in 2010, works with elementary school students throughout North America. Sylvester Stallone. The rocky road to stardom in the early 1970s forced aspiring actor and screenwriter Sylvester Stallone to sell his beloved Bull Mastiff for $50. He spent 3 weeks sleeping in New York's Port Authority bus station. "I was broke," he says. Stallone is now a big supporter of UNICEF and military charities, which benefited from a 2015 auction of his memorabilia from Rocky and Rambo. Hilary Swank. The two-time Oscar winner's roots were far from swanky. In 1989, at the age of 15, she and her mother lived in a car for 2 weeks after moving to Los Angeles so Hilary could pursue acting. They then crashed on air mattresses in a friend's empty house, scooting in the morning before the realtor showed up with prospective buyers. Swank now actively supports nearly 20 charities, including the Humane Society and UNICEF. Daniel Craig. Bond. James Bond, was broke, dead broke, when he moved to London at age 15 to study acting at the National Youth Theatre in the mid-80s. Young Daniel Craig worked part-time in restaurants to support himself, but still had to sleep on park benches. His numerous charities today include the Opportunity Network, which provides educational opportunities to low-income students in New York. Jim Carrey. Carrey was 12 when his father lost his job, a kick in the guts that the actor/comedian has never forgotten. "We lived in a van for a while," recalls Carrey, who worked in a factory 8 hours a day after school. In 2005, he joined the battle against world hunger by creating the Better You Foundation, which maintains that rice is the grain that can change the world. Tyler Perry. The one-man movie conglomeration got his start in 1990 in Atlanta, where he invested his $12,000 life savings in an autobiographical play, I Know I've Been Changed. The show's initial failure forced Perry to live out of his car, but his perseverance paid off when the retooled production became a hit in 1998. The proceeds financed his first movie, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, jump-starting the blockbuster Medea franchise. Perry's millions have benefited charities like Covenant House, the Jackie Robinson Foundation and Male Survivor, which aids male victims of sexual abuse. Beck. The eclectic singer and guitarist was 19 when he took a bus to New York in 1989, crashing on friends' couches as he explored the Lower East Side's anti-folk scene. 2 years later, facing the prospect of living on the streets in winter, Beck returned to his native Los Angeles. "I was tired of being cold, tired of getting beat up." Maybe that's why so many of his charitable endeavors benefit at-risk children, including Every Mother Counts. The campaign started by former model Christy Turlington to improve the lives of girls and women worldwide, and War Child, a network that helps kids affected by war. Jewel. The daughter of an abusive alcoholic, Jewel grew up in a house with no heat or running water in Homer, Alaska, where she frequently lived on the streets and resorted to shoplifting. People treated me like I was contagious, she says. They thought the homelessness might spread to them. Now the singer helps kids with her Never Broken program, which provides a roadmap to developing job skills and amping up self-esteem. Drew Carey. After joining the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve in 1981, where he first got the crew cut that would soon become his trademark. Cleveland native tried to make his way to Los Angeles but ran out of money in Las Vegas. To fend off homelessness, Carey sold his plasma for $40 a pop, panhandled for spare change and worked briefly as a waiter at Denny's. The Price is Right host is now a huge supporter of child-related charities and public libraries, including the Cleveland Public Library and the Ohio Library Foundation. Kelsey Grammer. Before he started hanging out with the other barflies at Cheers, Grammer was homeless in New York, often camping out behind the theater where he got one of his first jobs. The Emmy Award-winning star of Frasier has contributed to more than 24 charitable causes, including Broadway Cares/Equity Fights AIDS, the Los Angeles Police Memorial Foundation and various groups that help veterans and missing children. Susie Orman. The financial guru knows all about rags and riches. After graduating college in 1976, Orman drove to Berkeley, California, where she lived in her Ford Econoline van while working as a waitress. I couldn't afford to rent an apartment, or even a room, Orman wrote in her 2005 bestseller The Money Book for the Young, Fabulous and Broke. With a net worth estimated at $35 million, she is now associated with the Women's Leadership Conference, which helps women develop tools to advance their lives and careers. David Letterman. Struggling to find his footing as a stand-up comedian in Los Angeles in 1973, the future talk show legend lived out of his Chevy pickup. He got his first big break writing jokes for Jimmy Walker, Good Times. Today, Letterman's favorite causes include at-risk and disadvantaged youth, education, and the environment. Martin Sheen. The star of Apocalypse Now and The West Wing slept on the subway while trying to make it as an actor in New York in the early 1960s. Sheen, who played Mitch Snyder, an advocate for the homeless, in a 1986 made-for-TV biopic, now supports dozens of charities and causes, including St. Francis food pantries and shelters in New York. Steve Harvey. Attempting to eke out a living as a stand-up comic on the road in the late 80s, Harvey was virtually homeless for 3 years. He lived out of his 1976 Ford Tempo, washing up in public restrooms. It was so disheartening, Harvey told People in 2013. But even in my darkest days I had faith it would turn around. He got his big break on Showtime at the Apollo and is now so wealthy that he and his wife established the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation to mentor youth and award scholarships. Jennifer Lopez. Jenny from the Block slept in a New York dance studio for 3 months while trying to break into showbiz in the late 80s. It paid off in 1990 when she got hired as a fly girl dancer on Fox's sketch comedy series In Living Color. Fame as a pop idol and movie star soon followed. Lopez pays it forward by supporting dozens of charities and foundations, from the Boys and Girls Clubs of America and Save the Children to Amnesty International, the March of Dimes and the Red Cross. William Shatner. The Star Trek captain found himself navigating a far less glamorous enterprise after the groundbreaking show and his first marriage ended in 1969. He soon hit the road to perform summer stock, driving from theater to theater on the East Coast. I had 3 kids and was totally broke, says Shatner, so I lived out of the back of my pickup truck, under a hard shell. Among his favorite charities these days, Habitat for Humanity, which has been building simple, decent, affordable housing since 1976. Dr. Phil. The TV psychologist's childhood sounds like fodder for an episode of his self-titled talk show. Phil McGraw was 12 years old when he and his father lived in the family car in Kansas City before moving downtown into a room at the YMCA for $5 a week. Dr. Phil supports nonprofit organizations like the New York Coalition for Healthy School Food, the American Heart Association and Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. In 2003, he launched the Dr. Phil Foundation to fight childhood obesity. The commonalities that brought about success were indeed scaled on trying, again and again to make certain the pathways opened up all the way. Life has its ups and downs, but planned downs must be to reverse through planning. I knew a young man who was killed at 67 years for his land. His area representative had his eye on the land and properties. The young man worked very hard to make ends meet. All his life, he supported his wife and loved her. Like hand in glove, they built their home and life together. This type of loyalty was never seen in their part of the world where men were machismo. After years of planning and penetrating the man's relatives, they struck him and later his wife after 16 years, hoping to take their property for private and for public use. He used his political connections to redline the man's children and to cause undue hardship. The returns on his hatred and ill pursuit of the family did not go unchallenged. Life is beautiful. Respect everyone's share.